Well, I have here a Womp Womp there. We have a sad trombone there, so I forgot to deactivate the source in OBS, but it fits today's episode of Day 2 of creating my own Fallout game. We continued with the preparation of assets, which I started with creating a new crafting component, which is gunpowder. My idea was that the player would be able to find this in various containers as well as craft it at a chemistry workbench in order to craft all kinds of ballistic ammunition at an ammunition workbench. For the 3D model of the gunpowder, I chose to utilize the acid jar, as I did once before in another mod, with a simple reskin that unfortunately still said gunpowder on it though. Now you may say, wait, isn't it supposed to be gunpowder? Oh, and you're absolutely right. But if you watched the first episode already, you know that the mod is taking place in Germany, and hence I had to go on a little venture in finding the font again I was using before. After all, my PC broke down in January and I lost all my fonts with upgrading my system. But because fonts also do have copyrights that must be respected, and some may not be used for commercial use. As my creations are my sole income, even though they all come without a price tag, I therefore had to ensure I use a font that is not bound to personal use to be on the safe side, or otherwise alter it myself. But it didn't take me long, luckily, to find the precise font again. The next thing I did was preparing a static collection for fragments of the Berlin Wall itself. Now, of course, I'm modeling here the main wall that was supposed to protect East Berlin from Westerners running over. Yeah, this is why millions of East Germans fled west before it was built, right? Yeah. Well, for that purpose, a wall existed too in some places, but no. We are focusing on the wall that's most associated with Berlin Wall. It is a concrete wall with this round Übersteigschutz, which I don't even know how to translate. It's a very slippery round column on top of that wall that gives you no grip whatsoever, and so you automatically slip down again. I had a very clear idea what assets to use, even though I forgot the editor ID names again, and so it felt like it took forever. The next static collection to build to be reused as one model was a barbwire fence, where I also had to look endlessly for the wooden shack pillars. I even had Green Foxel, the project lead of Conquered Stories, in chat, who confessed he's also guilty of looking every time endlessly for the precise pillar I was thinking of. So, a lot of people are having that issue, not only me, luckily. The barbed wire fence will be used at the border strips and military posts, and I even thought to make it an activator that, if the player runs into, receives very slight damage from the barbed wire. However, without loading the Wasteland Workshop DLC, I couldn't find a pre-made script to alter that would work for this, as all the vanilla traps in the game are based upon emitting something for a period of time or exploding. Therefore, I either had to resort back to a marker like in the first episode, or copy the script out of Wasteland Workshop another day. In either case, I decided to lay this for now, the model was more important. However, the frustration was not to end on this day, as I wanted to also build these tank stoppers known as Czech Hedgehogs. I never understood why modders always import new 3D models for them rather than utilizing the industrial beams of Fallout 4, but I was about to find out why. However, it needs... Oh my god. You cannot... I think nobody can understand the brain fart that I'm having about this, because it's such annoying with angles. I could make a mathematical equation out of that, to be honest. Big part of the problem is that the center of rotation is next to the object on the center of it, and this is why it's such a pain to align it properly. Yep, the gimbal. So the center of the object is offset, meaning for perfect alignment we'd have to measure how much offset it is in order to make a mathematical equation on how to perfectly align all pieces together, or just try endlessly. Therefore I decided to just make a temporary placeholder for now with merging all the beams inside of each other that can be replaced at a later time. It still looks okay, just not very logical in the way it is assembled. Anyway, the day was to become still worse for my brain capacity. Because also on the list was something I've never worked with in my entire life ever since I started modding in 2005. Armor modification. In Fallout 4, you can improve some armor, underarmor, and outfits to have so-called armor lining, which improves your gear to have additional protections, granting you more or higher resistances of incoming damage. I wanted to expand on this feature with my entirely own armor linings that can be applied to all the outfits and armor that come with this mod. I will spare you all the details, but doing it the first time was extremely confusing and took a lot of time to understand. But never be afraid of new challenges, that's how you grow. It may feel embarrassing, but there's nothing embarrassing about trying to get better at what you are doing. It is through failure that we learn more than an easy victory, and a failure is still something to feel proud of, as most people wouldn't even dare to try. That's my encouragement for you for the day. Anyway, after a couple of attempts, I finally made it work, and then it was merely about bringing in some order and balance, which required me to understand how the resistances are calculated in the creation engine to begin with, and even had to grab a pocket calculator to test theories and calculations to make it all make sense. At first I made a lining for every kind of protection, but then in the end I found it more interesting to summarize some of them. Currently, energy and electrical is one lining, cryo and poison is one, ballistic and fire resistance are combined in one lining, and radiation is extra. But feel free to let me know in the comments below what you prefer. Always like hearing players' thoughts. After that, I went ahead to utilize the 3D model of the cigar in game for something that is so German, most internationally do not even know of it. White asparagus. I personally do love me some white asparagus quite a lot, with pork chops and hollandaise sauce, and oh, I forgot I have no internet, so I cannot download a picture for that now for the video. Anyway, I don't know how to make 3D models from scratch, but slightly alter or tweak them. Making the texture for the white asparagus from scratch live on stream, I had to realize that the new GIMP 3.0 has some weird tweaks of itself that limited me a little bit. Luckily, nothing I wasn't able to overcome until I forgot that the normal map for the cigar is in a different color, and hence it looked absolutely horrible. But I knew I will have to rework the shape of the cigar anyways too, in order to get the asparagus done. So that's something to come back to another time again when I have a day of focusing on 3D modeling. This is by the way speed up by a whole 800%. I wanted to share the full process with you to see for yourself why so many corporations used to simply buy assets from the markets, why they have to hence protect their assets from theft and disallow modding, as assets could be flipped elsewhere, and finally of course the uprise of generative AI that displaces artists of their jobs and existences, as investors and shareholders are impatient with their budgets, knowing of technologies that can save the paid living wage for these employees, as they see their customers demanding new releases earlier and earlier for bigger and vaster productions. And this is merely the diffuse map, so the colors of the objects. We still have to create the normal map for the depth of the object, formerly known as a bump map, as well as the specular map or spectral map responsible for the glossiness and reflection of the object. Of course, on stream things go a little slower due to communication with the chat, but in the end the statement stays. The AI problem is not that it exists, it is how it is used, as those with the money see a negative feedback that tends to be based on unrealistic expectations and comparisons beyond fairness. Therefore, before you bark at a tree, inform yourself properly. Use the internet, you are literally on it. However, let's end on a more positive note with the implementation of more consumables from previous productions of mine. Like the sickly cereals for the East German sector that are sickle-shaped cornflakes. You could say that is sickling, because it spells sick lies intentionally. Since I added sugar addiction into my mod, I also imported a variant of sugar-free bombs with some different color for better distinguishing. Speaking of addictions, a re-envisioning of MatTech's Fixer from Fallout New Vegas found its way into my mod too, that comes with side effects to really make addictions a punishing experience for the player in multiple ways. There was an effect for crippling the legs, but I couldn't find one for the head at first. Once I did though, that didn't work. So in order to give a similar effect like in New Vegas, I will have to do something from scratch. As I added nicotine addiction the day before, I also added quite a variety of cigarette pack designs that are still outlined around in my folders catching dust that are now smokable with various effects. Gory cigarettes for East Germany imported from the Soviet Union, Marble Oro as French caffeinated cigarettes for the French sector in West Berlin, and the Target Strike cigarettes for the States. Feel free to let me know what other fun brands you can think of. That summarized day 2 of building my own game-sized mod for Fallout 4 in Berlin. I hope as always that you did enjoy it, and I catch you for day 3, hopefully soon. Special thanks to my Ko-fi subscribers that keep the ball running, and I see you another time, another day. Scratch live on stream. I had to realize that the new GIMP 3.0 3.0 God